Welcome, listeners of WHFB AM 1060 and WIMS AM 1420, as we launch another edition of the Green Radio Network. Here on the Green Radio Network, we'll bring you a variety of green topics and the latest information on green technology and transportation. This program features environmental leaders throughout northern Indiana and the entire nation. The Green Radio Network is sponsored by NERPC, the Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, and the award-winning South Shore Clean Cities. Both entities are leaders in the environmental industry and work together to bring cleaner air and more sustainable living to northern Indiana. Now to introduce Carl Lisek, Executive Director of South Shore Clean Cities and the host of the show.
Thank you for that introduction. Today our guest is Miss Cynthia Maves. She's the Electric Vehicle Fleet Business Development Manager for Nissan North America. Cynthia, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Carl.
Well, so many great things that are going on with Nissan and electric vehicles, Cynthia, and I know that you're involved with a lot of the great things that are going on here in the Midwest. And so I know that one of the recent things that we've been working on with South Shore Clean Cities, Chicago area Clean Cities, Wisconsin Clean Cities, is that we have a partnered with you for a Nissan LEAF group buy project. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
Sure thing. So we have partnered with South Shore Clean Cities and also NIPSCO on offering a $10,000 incentive, first to NIPSCO employees. That's how the program started out. And then it got expanded to include customers. And that was fairly popular, especially in March, and resulted in some additional sales. Also, we've had a long relationship with Wisconsin Clean Cities in terms of group buy promotion. We worked with Wisconsin Clean Cities starting back in July to promote a group buy that the dealer was offering in Madison, Wisconsin. And then that group buy expanded into the $10,000 incentive that is being offered right now from Nissan Corporate, and it's available to Madison Gas and Electric and Alliant Energy customers and employees. And then it has also been expanded to We Energies, Wisconsin Public Service, Minnesota Power, and Xcel Energy. So a lot of Wisconsin is covered, whether you're an employee or a customer of any of those utilities. You're able to stop into a lease-certified dealer and obtain the $10,000 discount off of 2016 cars and also 2017 models.
Well, that's really exciting, Cynthia, because I think what we've seen is with the product itself, through some of the demonstrations here throughout Wisconsin and Indiana and the Chicagoland area, people are really interested in the Nissan LEAF and how well it operates, and it's really exciting. And so just talking about a $10,000 incentive, that's amazing for to walk into a dealership, have that basically like a voucher that's applied right from the purchase price of that vehicle. And, so it's exciting. So, to tell our listeners a little bit more about that, can they order a vehicle through this, or, basically they would go into a dealership, and would that have to be a vehicle that would be on site that they could take possession of, or how would that work?
Sure. Right now the discount expires at the end of June. So most of the cars are available at the dealership that would be subject to the discount. If a customer is having problems locating a car, I certainly can help with that. There may be an option for a dealer-to-dealer trade to get a car for the customer, or perhaps order it from our manufacturing facility. So in terms of timing, I would recommend that customers that are interested see their dealership here in April to make sure they can get the car by June 30th.
Wonderful, wonderful. Very exciting. And, again, the Nissan LEAF is an all-electric vehicle. So how does that differ from, like, gas vehicles in terms of operation and parts, Cynthia?
Sure. So I can talk about what an electric vehicle does not have that a gas car would have. So an electric vehicle does not have a tailpipe, at least with an all-electric vehicle like the Nissan LEAF. And that means that the car has no emissions coming out of the car, making it much cleaner than a gas-powered car. Other things, it does not have an oil filter, a carburetor, an alternator. It doesn't have a typical gas-powered transmission. So gas-powered vehicles typically require a wide range of maintenance in terms of oil changes, filter replacements, periodic tune-ups, and exhaust system repairs. EVs are much less complicated, and they require less maintenance. Therefore, they are cheaper to maintain and own. An EV has just one moving part, the motor, whereas the gas-powered car has hundreds of moving parts. So you can see why it's easier and cheaper to maintain an EV over a gas car.
Sure.
And one other interesting item is that EVs are much more energy efficient than gas-powered vehicles. So electric motors convert 85% of their full energy into usable power, and a gas car is less than 20% efficient.
Wow, that's amazing. That's something. And again, I think one of the things too that the Nissan Leaf, as we talk about, American-made products and things like that, is the Leaf American-made vehicle, Cynthia?
Yes, it is. The Leaf is manufactured in our plant in Smyrna, Tennessee, and in addition, the battery is also manufactured in Smyrna. And the electric motor is manufactured in our facility in Deckard, Tennessee. So it is made in the state of Tennessee.
Wow, and that's really amazing. So I mean, in regards to some of these incentives, and in regards to how popularity with the Nissan Leaf has increased, can you talk a little bit about that? How you've seen sales, and just all the work that you've done across the Midwest in regards to educating people on the benefits of not only the Nissan Leaf, but electric vehicles.
Yeah, certainly. I think we've seen more interest in electric vehicles. In terms of the Nissan Leaf March sales, we had 1,478 sales in March in 2017, and that was up from 1,246 in 2016. I think a lot of that is attributed to some of these group buy programs. We also are doing them in other parts of the United States. Also, I think people are coming to know what an electric vehicle is and how it might fit into their lifestyle. Mm-hmm. We still do find that people a lot of times don't know what an electric vehicle is and don't know that Nissan has one. So their education is certainly still very important, and the work that the Clean Cities organizations do, such as Wisconsin Clean Cities and South Shore Clean Cities, is so important to getting the word out to people that an EV may be a good fit for their lifestyle. We also are seeing more fleet adoption, and some of those fleets, for instance, City of Hobart just bought one Leaf, mm-hmm. and they have been using it now for a couple weeks. And then other municipalities around the country are using it. For instance, City of Highland Park in Illinois, their fire department uses some Leafs, and they do fire marshal inspections. And then other cities may use them in their employee pools, also to do housing, zoning inspections, code enforcement, parking enforcement, a lot of duty cycles such as that.
I see. You're listening to Cynthia Maves. She is the electric vehicle fleet business development manager from Nissan North America. And, Cynthia, a lot of people still have questions in regards to, considering the purchase of an all-electric vehicle, and they have different types of chargers and charging levels. Can you explain the difference on those?
Sure. So the car comes with what we call a trickle charge cable, and that is the ability to charge up the car at a regular outlet, just a regular 110 outlet. But that's very slow. It charges about 4 miles in an hour. Many consumers go ahead and get a charging station installed into their garage, and that would be what we call level 2 charging station or 240-volt chargers, and that gets you about 20 miles in an hour. And many of those charging stations are around in the northern Indiana area and also in many other areas across the country. Also, the car is equipped to charge at a DC fast charger. That's a high-powered charger at about 480 volts. And it'll charge up the car from 0 to 80% in capacity in about 30 minutes, or 50 miles in about 10 minutes.
That's fast. That's great. You're listening to the Green Radio Network here on AM 1420 WIMS Radio and AM 1060 WHFB. I'm your host, Carl Lisek. I'll be right back with the Electric Vehicle Fleet Business Development Manager, Ms. Cynthia Maves, right after this. You're listening to the Green Radio Network on AM 1420 WIMS Radio and AM 1060 WHFB. This is Carl Lisek. We'll be right back after this message.
There's nothing more important than spending time outdoors with your family. That's why it's so important to do whatever you can to keep our air clean. It's good for the environment and good for the health of your friends and family. Take a closer look at how poor quality is affecting our community. Across the 3 counties of Northwest Indiana, recent studies from the American Lung Association show that 9% of adults suffer from asthma, 4% live with chronic bronchitis, 38% have a form of cardiovascular disease, and 10% of the children in Lake and LaPorte counties struggle with pediatric asthma. Now, the number of adults with asthma is nearly that of adults with diabetes. Consider how diabetics make adjustments to their diet in order to be as healthy as possible. Everyone can make adjustments to improve air quality and the quality of life for those who live with asthma and other lung diseases. Northwest Indiana, clean air, think green, breathe easy. A message from NERPC.
Thank you again for joining us on AM 1420 WIMS Radio and AM 1060 WHFB on this edition of the Green Radio Network. Welcome back to the Green Radio Network here on AM 1420 WIMS Radio and AM 1060 WHFB. I'm Carl Lisek of South Shore Clean Cities, here to bring you the latest information on green projects and topics across the nation. Our guest today is Ms. Cynthia Maves. She's the Electric Vehicle Fleet Business Development Manager for Nissan North America. And, Cynthia, we were talking a lot about these the $10,000 incentive that's available. One of the things that we didn't really talk about is one of the tax incentives that is currently available. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The Nissan LEAF is eligible for a $7,500 federal tax incentive, and that is an incentive that the consumer who buys the vehicle they apply for when they file their federal tax return. So typically, we recommend that the consumer check with their tax preparer to see what they need to do and if they are truly able to take advantage of the incentive.
Mm-hmm. So I know one thing that a lot of people talk about, Cynthia, is in regards to what happens to batteries from electric vehicles after they're no longer operating in cars. Are there some potential opportunities for those vehicles or those batteries to be reused?
Sure. We do get asked that question a lot because people are concerned about the potential for waste in a used battery. So Nissan has partnered with some other companies on some research to develop alternative uses, and they can be used as a stationary energy storage device, and utilities can use those. Also, businesses can use the systems as backup power, or they can access the stored power, for instance, when demand charges during the day are high, and so they can control some of their electricity costs that way. And I think we will see eventually residential systems similar to the business system where homes can install a battery pack that would help them in the event of a power outage, mm-hmm. and also in terms of helping with their high costs if a consumer does get higher costs during the day. They can help manage that with a home system.
Sure. No, that's very exciting, and I think as we read a lot of these periodicals and newspaper articles across the country, we're hearing a lot more about that, moving forward. So we'll be very interested to hear more about that in the coming months and years with Nissan. So I know in our area and throughout the Clean Cities family, we hear a lot of companies using workplace charging as an incentive for employees. So how can employees advocate for workplace charging? What do you think are some of the ways that they can do that?
Sure. I always recommend that employees and employers go visit the Department of Energy Workplace Charging Challenge website, and there are toolkits on that site for employers to use and also employees to educate themselves on workplace charging. Employees can ask their workplace to install charging. They can also ask their employer to conduct an employee survey that would essentially ask their employees what their interest in EV charging would be, or if they plan to buy an EV at any time in the next year or couple years. And a lot of times those surveys help to drive the management decisions at the company. And also, workplace charging typically results in increased adoption by employees, so it's very much a catalyst for employees that maybe never considered an EV to look at buying an EV.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, another question that always comes up is what kind of range can people expect from a Nissan LEAF?
Sure. So the 2017 has a 107-mile estimated EPA range, and that's typically, what you're going to get on a regular day. Okay.
And then, with the 2018 LEAF coming out, what kind of information should we expect coming out on that very, very soon?
So the 2018 is going to be the next generation LEAF, and we are planning to announce the specs on that in September. And it will include the ProPilot technology, which is the autonomous drive technology, which is designed for highway use in single-lane traffic. So that's very exciting. But the range will be revealed in September, and then sales will happen later on in 2017.
Wow. Oh, very exciting. A lot of great things going on. So with the LEAF, it's being used in a variety of different areas, not just for personal use. Tell our listeners how these vehicles are being used. I know you alluded to some of the communities that are using them for kind of like right-sizing some of their fleets, with different department heads using them. But what other types of areas are they being used in?
Sure. We have certain municipalities that are using the LEAF as a police car. So the city of Atlanta is one of those. And it's not used as a pursuit vehicle, but they use it for other police uses. And then we've got several universities that have adopted LEAFs. Penn State has 10 LEAFs. They use them in their physical plant department and also in their administration for administrative officials to attend meetings. Ohio State has a couple LEAFs, and they use them to go back and forth to and from the airport. And Ohio University has 4 LEAFs. And IU recently purchased 4 LEAFs.
Wonderful.
So that's pretty exciting. IU in Bloomington.
Okay, that is exciting. So as we talk about these different vehicles, what's the best way for people to learn more about the Nissan LEAF, and how would they get in contact with you?
Sure. You can check out our website on our Nissan website. For the LEAF. You can also email me at cynthia.maves@nissan-usa.com. I can answer any questions, and also point you towards any group buy programs that we have going on in the Midwest right now.
Which is exciting. And again, I think what we've seen, with the different folks that we work with, is that everybody's excited about these incentives. I think one of the main things, too, is with these variety of ride and drive events that we've done, Cynthia, is that once people drive the Nissan LEAF, they find out, wow, this is a great car. And I think you've probably heard that more than I've heard that. But I think, when people drive, these are fun cars. Talk a little bit about that, some of your interpretation of some of the things that you've heard from some of the new electric vehicle drivers.
Sure. I think people do enjoy the quiet ride, also the exhilaration that is available in the car. It's not like a golf cart. It is a substantial car. The battery is in the floor of the car, so that makes the car have a low center of gravity and makes it handle more like a sports car when you're turning and taking on curves, that kind of thing. So we get a lot of feedback about how much people like driving it in terms of the quiet and the exhilaration. And then also they enjoy not going to the gas station. They think it's really easy to come home and plug in, and then when they get up in the morning, it's all ready to go. We do have some customers that don't have charging available where they live, so they use the DC fast chargers that are in the community where they live, and that's more like going to a gas station. They typically go charge up at a DC fast charger and maybe go get a cup of coffee while they're doing that or stop in at a store. Nissan has invested a lot in DC fast charging across the country. And we have worked with communities and also retailers to install DC fast chargers, and we typically look for sites that have something for the driver to do for the 30 minutes or so while they're charging up at the fast charger.
You know, it's just such an exciting time, Cynthia, you know, as we moved from, you know, gaseous vehicles to electric vehicles here in the Midwest. And, you know, as we do that, we're just, you know, we're very happy to have partnered with Nissan on the future. So as we move forward, any closing thoughts that you want to tell our listeners in regards to electric vehicles or the Nissan LEAF?
I would encourage people to learn more about it and see if it might fit into their lifestyle. Take a test drive. You can go to a dealer and take a test drive or attend a Clean Cities ride and drive and take the opportunity to get behind the wheel. That's typically what surprises people the most, and they become very excited about it. I think, too, people enjoy that the car doesn't produce emissions, and that's important to many people. And they're also finding that the electricity that they use and that they pay for at their house to charge the car is much less than what they would pay at the gas station for a similar car.
No, it's just exciting. You know, again, we see some of the new technologies that are going to be coming out with electric vehicles, the amount of electric charging stations, public charging stations that are coming, and then, you know, we'll have some new exciting programs to talk about in regards to some of the things that we're working on with, you know, Wisconsin and South Shore Clean Cities. So it's an exciting time for people to, you know, reduce emissions and look at driving some of these new technological advances. And the Nissan LEAF is just one of those vehicles that, you know, we've had the pleasure of demonstrating for a while, and it's been very exciting. So, you know, congratulations on the great work that you're doing. We look forward to the future. And that will do it for today's edition of the Green Radio Network. I'm your host, Carl Lisek. Thanks again to our guests, Electric Vehicle Fleet Business Development Manager for Nissan North America, Ms. Cynthia Maves. And be sure to join us again on AM 1420 WIMS Radio and AM 1060 WHFB for the next edition of the Green Radio Network. And visit us online at SouthShoreCleanCities.org. Thank you, everybody.